Olá, boa tarde.
Boa tarde, Dilian.
Boa tarde, Jen. Olá, Dani. Vamos lá ter esse encontro nessa tarde bonita de... Aqui tá sol, em Recife. Como é que tá para você, Jen?
Tá um pouco sem sol. Vai ser tempo bom.
Em São Paulo tá fresquinho o tempo, então estamos em vários lugares do mundo,
Sim.
mas desfrutando daquilo que Deus tem permitido para cada um de nós, né? Do tempo, da soberania dele que coordena todas as coisas. Então, que bom que a gente tem esse tempinho reservado para se encontrar hoje à tarde. As pessoas estão chegando aqui no canal. Bem-vindo a todos. E vamos aqui aproveitar esse tempo compartilhando sobre o ensino de inglês numa perspectiva cristã, né? E técnica, porque
Sim.
como cristãos a gente faz as coisas também muito bem feitas, né, Jen?
Sim, com certeza, sempre.
Que bom, que bom. Cadê as pessoas? Vamos lá. Ver o pessoal aqui chegando. Deixa eu atualizar a minha página. Para ver vocês aqui. Legal. Boa tarde. Olha aí quantas pessoas já receberam o nosso convite, estão aqui. Bem-vinda a todos. Isso. Esse espaço aí do chat para vocês fazerem perguntas e para compartilharem também as impressões, as informações, as experiências de vocês nesse tempo de pandemia que a gente está tendo uma prática pedagógica tão diferenciada e tão desafiadora. Então, muito bom ter vocês aqui com a gente. Bom, para aproveitar o nosso tempo e a gente ter um tempo de muita troca de informação já com a Jen, que é uma pessoa tão rica, né, e tem tanta experiência, então a gente já vai começar e o pessoal que for chegando vai aproveitando aí o embalo da conversa que a gente está tendo aqui. Aproveitando também que vocês estão aqui, talvez pela primeira vez no canal da ACSI, então curte aí, nós temos alimentado o canal com muitas palestras, inclusive tem muitos vídeos da Jen, de uma série de entrevistas que nós fizemos com ela agora em março, e estamos alimentando com novidades também, então, por favor, apareça aí, curta no sininho para receber, se inscreva no canal e curta no sininho para receber as notificações, e dessa forma a gente vai se alimentando, fortalecendo o nosso conhecimento na visão de educação escolar cristã, tá bom? Bom, o nosso tempo hoje é reservado com a Jen, que é uma professora e doutora em estudos, né, para ensinar língua estrangeira,
Sim.
língua para estrangeiros, não é isso, Jen?
É isso.
E, além de ser doutora, ela é muito prática, porque ela vai nos lugares. Então, ela não só tem o conhecimento acadêmico, como ela tem a prática de ensinar uma nova língua para alguém que não é nativo dessa língua. E, no caso da Jen, é inglês, mas ela também fala português e indonesiano. É assim que fala, Jen?
Sim.
Então, ela também tem prática de aprender uma nova língua. Sim. E eu acho isso fantástico, porque sempre que eu tenho a oportunidade de conversar com você, Jen, eu aprendo bastante e eu consigo entender como o cérebro da criança, ou do ser humano mesmo, porque um adulto também pode aprender uma nova língua, né? E é muito enriquecedor ter essa experiência com você e ter vocês como amiga e como parceira da ACSI Brasil. Então, bem-vinda a esse momento aqui. Obrigada por aceitar o nosso convite. A Jen também é professora e eu não sei se está diretora ou se já não é mais diretora do curso no Messiah College.
Sou diretora dos cursos de TESOL.
Aí, então, lida com muitos professores que ensinam, né, uma nova língua para crianças e adultos, enfim. Então, muito obrigada por estar aqui conosco.
Obrigada pelo convite.
E para conduzir essa conversa, eu convidei a teacher Daniele. Ela está aqui conosco. Ela vai conduzir essa conversa com a Jen em inglês, já que vocês são professores de inglês. e eu realmente não dou conta disso. Então, Daniele é professora de inglês, tem experiência de ter vivido fora, atua numa escola cristã e já participou de vários cursos com a Jen. Então, ela vai estar conduzindo essa entrevista, esse bate-papo aqui, que eu queria que tivesse bem essa cara de bate-papo de professores. Pena que a gente não pode estar todo mundo junto, mas faz de conta que é uma sala de professor que vocês estão trocando.
Só falta um cafezinho, né?
Cafezinho. E a Daniele, ela também tem assumido com a ACSI Brasil essa atividade de ser assessora para as escolas que usam o material da ACSI e para o ensino de inglês, e também para as escolas que são associadas, mas que usam outro material. Ela tem tido a oportunidade de chegar mais perto e trocar ideias e compartilhar a visão cristã e trocar essa experiência mesmo de ensino de sala de aula. Então, obrigada, Daniele, por estar aqui conosco também. Então, é isso. Oi?
Oi, Daniele.
Oi, Jen. Hello. Então, é isso, pessoal. Aproveitem bastante esse tempo. A nossa expectativa é que tenha uma duração de 1 hora, tá bom? Então, até 4 e pouquinho a gente já vai estar encerrando. Então, vamos aproveitar bastante. É isso. Eu vou sair de cena e vocês vão ficar com a Jen Dorme e com a Daniele.
Obrigada.
Hello, Jen. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Hi, Daniele. Very good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. It's always a pleasure. I thank God that I've met you and that I've heard what your experience around the world teaching English. It's amazing. And I have some questions written down here so I don't get lost. And so I'm gonna make you a question so we can start our talking. And also, if you have any questions, you can use the chat and we're gonna ask Jen, okay?
Yes.
So Jen, this has been a very hard time for all the teachers in moving instruction online, but especially for English teachers, it has been hard and challenging. So how are English teachers in Christian schools handling this situation?
Daniele, that's a really good place to start because, I have contact with ACSI schools all around the world and schools in Indonesia, schools in China, schools in other places in Latin America. And, it's been a really hard time for everyone. English teaching, as you know, and as everybody listening knows, is very hands-on, and we rely on all of these strategies that we do in the classroom, right? For effective English learning. And how do you put that all online now? So I think English teachers have struggled maybe more than teachers of other subjects, right? Is that your sense too? I mean, I think it's hard as an English teacher.
Yes, it's very hard.
And that's what I hear from schools around the world. How do we now do all of these pair and group work and things like that we should be doing in English classes. So I guess what I would start out with is, if you're an English teacher in Brazil and you're struggling with this, you are not alone. English teachers all around the world are struggling with this change. And Daniele, it all happened so fast, right?
Yes.
So no time to really prepare, to think, how am I going to set up my lessons differently for online instruction? There was really hardly any time to prepare, right?
Even the material. Sometimes we want to do something online and we think, oh my God, I don't have it here. It's in the school.
Yes, yes, that too. And I have felt that as well. I am sequestered in Indiana, and that's a long ways from my office in Pennsylvania, and I wasn't able to get back to get anything. So yes, materials, and oh my goodness, this has been a challenging time for teachers, and I think especially for English teachers.
Yeah, I know. So, Jen, moving a bit according to the title of our session, right? The value of the Christian English teacher in online instruction. So I know we talk a lot about online English teaching today, but I'd like you to tell us the difference between a regular English teacher and the Christian English teacher.
Wow, Daniele, that is such a good question. And, when I'm training teachers, I'm training Christian teachers because I teach at a Christian university. And sometimes I ask them, what do you do differently that a non-Christian English teacher doesn't do? And people are like, I don't know. And so I think as Christians, as teachers in Christian schools, we have to really think about this. And so some of you who have heard me present maybe have heard of my 4 M's. I use 4 words that start with M to talk about what I think Christian English teachers should be doing in the classroom. So Daniele, I'm just going to share my screen quickly here so that people can see. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I like to use this model of 4 words that start with M. And Daniele, you can interject or stop me if you have an example or a question about any of them. But yeah, let's start with methods, because a lot of teachers have never thought about if their methodology reflects Christ or not. Isn't that right? Do you think that sometimes teachers don't think about that? Oh, I can't hear you, Daniele. Yeah. No, I can't hear you. Okay. I'm just going to let me go ahead and explain the 4 M's, okay? Yeah. Okay, maybe we have some technical problems here. I'm not sure. But anyway, Daniele, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay. I'll keep going then. So our methodology as Christians needs to reflect Christ, and it needs to build relationships. sometimes in the past we had a lot of methodology in Christian schools that, or in schools in general, a lot of methodology that really isolated people, that didn't build relationships, that didn't help people get to know one another. It wasn't building classroom community. And I really think that our methods that we use need to do all these things. And so the next M, materials, when we talk about materials, I think some people just think, oh, in a Christian school, that means using the Bible or whatever. I don't think that's necessarily the case, that it's just using the Bible, but I do think our materials need to have Christian values in them. And that's one thing I like about the Passport to Adventure series, because it does. I wrote 2 of those books, and it has strong Christian values in it. And the third M is modeling. We need to be modeling in class. We need to be Christ-like in class, right? So I can hear you now, I think, Daniele.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, good.
Great.
So I'll just quickly go through the last 2 here. We need to model Christ-likeness in class. And
yes,
that might involve stopping to have a word of prayer about a concern that a student has raised. That might involve showing students by our own actions how we resolve conflict in a Christ-like way. And, you know, students are very observant. If they see us having, you know, kind of an exchange with another teacher that maybe is not that Christ-like, they will notice that and see that, right?
yeah.
And we need to model Christ to our students. And then the last thing is mentoring. I do think that in English classes, we can get close to students in different ways, because in English, we talk a lot about a lot of personal things. We talk about feelings, we talk about personalities, we talk about what we like and don't like, we talk about the things that we do on the weekend. In other subjects, sometimes there's no opportunity to talk about those things, but we can talk about those things in the English class. So that gives us an opportunity to get to know our students really well, and therefore be open to students that God might bring into our lives as mentees, that special students that God might want us to mentor. And it might last for more than just the year that you teach them in an English class, for example.
That's great. I have to tell you, Jen, the first time I heard you in 2016 here in Recife, the first time I heard about the 4 M's, it changed my teaching life. It was like, my God, what am I doing? I have to be different, you know? And since then, I keep this in mind. It's amazing.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, Daniele. Thank you.
I also have the privilege to teach in a Christian school, so I know I can use the materials and the songs, and so I do it. You know, I teach Bible verses, I teach songs. Whenever I have a moment that I can include a song in my classes, in my planning, I always choose a Christian song, because I think, my God, why not? You know.
That's wonderful, Daniele. That's wonderful. And when you say, why not? That's a good perspective for English teachers to keep, that we should always be doing whatever we can, right? To lead students one step closer to Christ, one step closer to in their own journey with Christ. So, you know, we should always be doing whatever we can. Yeah.
And I remember a song that you taught that you have, I think you recorded with your brothers, that song, "Today is the day that the Lord has made." So I used to sing this song a lot with my students last year in the first grade. And I used to tell them, no matter what, today is the day that the Lord has made. So it's a happy day. And so it doesn't matter how you wake up or the problems that you have, it's a happy day because it's the day the Lord has made. And I remember once that a student, I don't know what happened, but he said to me, "Teacher, it's a happy day. It's the day the Lord has made." And I was so happy because the songs, they really, they get in your mind, you know, you start singing, you remember it easier than just by memorizing. When it's a song, it's easier. So it's amazing how this works and how we have to use them.
Yes. And if I could mention here, I have a website at Messiah University that has free materials for English teachers. And all of the songs, like the song Daniele is talking about, all of the songs with the worksheets that help develop the English and all the audio files are all there, and they're free to download. So if you need access to that, I think it's somewhere on the ACSI page. I think that link is there. But if not, you can always email me too.
It is, Jen. I've already, all the schools that are our partners, they have already received, I've already sent to them the link of your website. And it is also on the ACSI website. There is a part called "I'm an English teacher." Is that right? Yes, "I'm an English teacher, help." And then there are lots of tips in there with links and websites and YouTube channels. So your website is in there.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So now that we are talking about internet and websites, let's talk about these that we are living now, the online teaching.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, okay. Let's kind of get into this a little bit here.
Jen, can you help us understand instruction online better, please?
Yes. And just as we get into this, let me say that I have been working with several ACSI organizations around the world where their teachers are now transferring their teaching to online using the Passport to Adventure series. So I have been working on that, and I have learned a lot as we've been going through this too. So let's just dive into that. I think one of the first things people need to know is that we do divide online instruction between synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous means the students and teachers are online together at the same time. And a good example of that is Zoom. So, Daniele, in Brazil, are a lot of teachers using Zoom?
Yes, Zoom. Zoom is the most used one.
Yes. So Zoom is a synchronous platform where you're kind of imagining that it's just like your regular classroom, but you're all on a screen. But you're there at the same time. So that's synchronous online instruction. And asynchronous is when students aren't online together or with the teacher at the same time. For example, if some might be familiar with Blackboard or Canvas, those are sites, or Moodle. Maybe people have heard of Moodle. And those are sites where students might go onto that site and they read what they're supposed to do, and then they type something on a discussion board, and maybe they respond to someone else's discussion, and maybe there's a video uploaded there that they watch. but they're not online at the same time as their friends or the teacher. So that is asynchronous online instruction. Daniele, in Brazil, are most English teachers in Christian schools doing synchronous instruction?
Jen, I think we are using both kinds of online classes. It depends on the age of the group, on the class, and on the number of classes that you teach. Because as you know, here in Brazil, we have schools, private schools that have like 5 times a week, English 5 times a week, or only once a week. So it depends. But I think I use both. I teach them via Zoom, and also video lessons that I record in advance, and then I send the link to my students. So
That is excellent. I am an advocate for both, and we typically call that a hybrid model.
Hybrid, yes. Hybrid.
Where there will be some Zoom sessions or something like Zoom for synchronous classroom learning, but then there is also a learning management system or platform like Blackboard or Canvas or Zoom or Moodle, where students will see what they have to do, where they will submit assignments, etc. So I think maybe except for young children, sometimes it should all be synchronous. But as in higher grades, a hybrid model works very well. So that's great that you're doing a hybrid model, Daniele.
Yeah, there are lots of ways, right, to teach online. So are there guidelines that you can provide, the best practices that teachers should follow when teaching English online?
Yes. So best practice does depend on a number of different factors. So and I have those on the screen right now. If you can see that, you know, the size of the group, the age of the students, what role are the parents going to play? And types of materials. Daniele, sometimes parents don't exactly know what their role is. Am I right?
Yeah. Yes, totally right.
So this can be a challenge.
Yes, the role, right? The role of the parents. You can also
role of the parents. So
help us.
So a little later on, let's come back a little later to the role of the parents, because that's important. But so there are these different factors that really will impact how you do online instruction. So as we go through these best tips, you know, you still have to consider all these factors, because they can make differences in what the best practice would be. But so let's go on to answer your question. Let's go to some general guidance.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, and this general guidance here, I'm kind of specifically talking about that synchronous learning, because I think that's the more difficult part. You know, it's not really that hard to set up a place where they're going to submit assignments or where you're going to upload a video for them to watch. That's kind of just cut and dried, right? But when it comes to the synchronous, the Zoom sessions, those are the ones that we really need to know how to do well as English teachers, I think. So just let's go through some guidance that's kind of general. Now, my first one there, I keep classes small. Daniele, I know that many Brazilian teachers have a lot more than 10 students in their classes, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, that's what we have to have.
So, however, here is the thing that I think teachers, but on a broader level, schools need to think through. Let's suppose that when you're teaching in your real classroom, you teach a 50-minute period. do we really need then, does that mean we need to have a 50-minute period on Zoom? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So that 50-minute period in Zoom, the 50-minute period in a real class, okay, maybe we should think of that as 25 minutes in Zoom and 25 minutes asynchronous work, like where students are going to be doing some homework, they're going to listen to a video, something like that. Now, if we think about it like that, then you could take 20 students from your regular class and divide them into 2 groups. And the teacher is still teaching for 50 minutes, but students are each group of students is only there for 25, and you can deal with a smaller number of students at a time. Does that make sense?
Totally, yes. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Because to a Zoom session, it's much easier and better to have less students, right? To control it.
And I say this especially because it's language teaching, you know, and it's already difficult to teach language to huge groups, to even 25 students. That's not a huge group, but that's a big number for a language class, right? So it's already hard to teach a large group language. It becomes even harder in a Zoom session. So if we can be creative in thinking about the teacher's time and the student's time online and do a hybrid model, I think that's better. Now, the second point there is using breakout rooms. I think, so Daniele, I don't know, do you find that teachers who use Zoom, are they using those breakout rooms for small group work?
I think so, Jane. I'm not sure because I don't have groups like that. I divide my groups, but I only have 10, 11 students. Sure. So I divide them like in 5, 6 students. So I don't use the breakout rooms, but I think that some teachers are using it.
Yes. Well, Zoom provides that. So you can put students in pairs, you can put students in small groups, just like you would in a regular English class. And teachers need to use that function of Zoom. You need to use those breakout rooms and put students in groups. Now, remember what I said about, the different factors of age. So that might be a little different with 5-year-olds, but for sure, if you are teaching 12-year-olds, you should be using those pair and small group work. Mute the students' mics. I think it's, this is something some teachers don't think of, and they spend minutes and minutes and minutes saying somebody's microphone is on, and there's background noise. Just mute the students' mics. You can do that as the teacher. Use a countdown feature. So you can get these countdowns that will show up on the screen, and so you put students in breakout rooms for pair or group activity. Use a countdown feature so that they know, okay, 30 seconds left now to complete the task, and then we're coming back. It's a fun thing for them. But also remember that more technology is not always better. I've seen teachers spend a long time trying to get students to find the raise hand button on Zoom when they could actually just raise their physical hand on the video.
Yes, that's true.
And be seen by the teacher. So anyway, think about that. Technology can be good. There are a lot of good, great, interesting tools, but be selective. Make sure they really are furthering the goal of using more English. And then keep that main goal, using English. So that's just some general points. Any thoughts on any of those, Daniele?
I think you're right. We have to take into consideration these guidelines because it facilitates our work, right? Sometimes we don't know that we have some features that can help us.
Yes.
And if we are read in a moment, in a time that we are learning so much, why not use this time to learn all the features and everything that the platforms or they help that they have to help us.
Yes,
so,
exactly. Take the time to learn those features. I just learned new things today, didn't I, Daniele?
You're right. Yes.
Preparing for this session. So, Daniele, I don't know if we can move on now. The role of the parents. You know, that's what I have on the screen now. Do you feel like this is sometimes, we already commented that this is sometimes a difficulty, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because especially talking about some students, they are, depending on the age, they really need their parents' assistance.
Yes.
And when it comes to English class, I have this week, a mother, she talked to me and she said, I don't know, I can't help my kid because I don't know English and I don't know how to help her. And I was like, oh my God.
Yes.
So how can we talk to parents? How can we tell them, look, just do these and these, or don't do these or these, because it's how you can help your kid better.
Yes, that's great. Well, I always like to tell parents or tell teachers to tell parents, here is my very short list. Parents need to be available. At least one parent should be available to troubleshoot technology. And of course, the younger the child, the more that is true. With an older child, it's probably the child helping the parent with technology, right? But so parents do need to be available, and they need to provide a good workspace for their students. It needs to be quiet. The student needs not only the computer access, but they also need some workspace on a table or a desk. But here is the thing that a lot of parents don't understand. If parents speak English, they are tempted to jump in and help their students in an English class, translate for them or something. Don't do that. We don't want parents to do that. And so this is good news, actually, for the parent who doesn't speak English, because it's the teacher's job. The teacher is the one teaching English, not the parent. And this kind of goes back to a perennial problem that we have in broader education, is expecting parents to be the teachers of their kids when they bring home homework that is too difficult for them to do, or too advanced, or too extensive. And, you know, it brings to mind the image of the parent staying up all night to finish the kid's science project, right? You know, that is not the role of parents in education. And teachers and schools need to be aware of that problem and need to make sure that homework sent home with their kids is at the right level for the child. The homework is for the child, not the parent. So parents are not the teachers of the subject. They should be there to encourage and support, but parents don't need to know English. That's the English teacher's job, right? So sometimes if parents think they can't help their child enough, it is because the teacher is not giving the kind of homework that really is appropriate for that child.
At the right level, right?
Yeah.
So if I agree, if the homework is too difficult, or if the kid doesn't understand the lesson at all, so it's not something for the parent to solve. We have to rethink our planning and see what I'm doing wrong. Like, oh, it's not the right level for my students.
Yes, and the problem, if parents do the work for the child, then that's a problem because the teacher never knows that the child couldn't do it. And the teacher needs that feedback, right? So Anyway, it's a problem. And what I put there at the bottom of the slide is that the school should provide orientation for parents so they understand their role. So we have to remember that this online instruction, this is all new for parents too. So they don't know what their role is. So the school really needs to provide orientation for parents. We would like you to do this and not do this and this. It's the school's role to provide that orientation for parents.
Excellent, and very, very, it was awesome to hear that, because we have to know how to help the parents and also to keep their effective right level.
Yeah.
So, otherwise, the students will also be like, oh my God, I can't.
Yes, that's right. Everybody's affective filter needs to remain low.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, Jen, in ACSI, we have the series, right? Passport to Adventure, and some schools, they use it. And I believe we have teachers here that they use the series. And I'd like to ask you, how can we use the series online? Do you have an experience with this?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. So it was very interesting when the whole pandemic started. So Daniele, I was on sabbatical and I was going to be traveling around the world providing teacher education in ACSI schools. And
plans, right?
Wow, what a semester to choose that as my sabbatical project, right?
Proverbs 16, right?
Yes, yes.
Have the plans, but
yes, but God directs the plan. So I was going to be traveling to China to work with a group that was just starting to use Passport to Adventure. And then the pandemic started there before anywhere else. So they were already reaching out to me, asking for advice. How can our teachers continue to use this series that we've just started using the series? Now we have to teach it all online. So I started actually working with the teachers who were teaching Passport to Adventure online. And I worked through some of the lesson plans to find online versions of those and everything. And I was pleasantly surprised in that as I worked through the lesson plan in the teacher's book, I found that most of it worked. Yeah, and if people are not aware that that the Passport to Adventure series has a really detailed teacher's book.
It has.
Yes,
I've read it.
the teacher's book has complete lesson plans. And sometimes what we have found when people we're saying things like, oh, my students are not developing the oral skills or whatever, what we have found sometimes to be true is that those teachers were not following the teacher's lesson plan.
Okay.
Because that's where a lot of the oral activities come in. Oral activities don't show up in a book because you don't use a book while you're doing face-to-face dialogue, right? So a lot more of those activities were just in the teacher's book. But so I worked with teachers to kind of go through the lesson plans in Passport to Adventure and just see what needed to be changed, and not much really needed to be changed. So what people can see here on the screen is that you can teach a lesson as much as possible as it would be taught. And I think in the next slide, I share more here. So let's go through this slide, and I think that will help.
Yes, that's great, because you can talk also about how to develop an online English lesson.
Yes, exactly.
So if you don't use the series Passport to Adventure, you can also adapt to any materials, right, that you use.
Yes, definitely. So here are some tips that I think are pretty important. You first do start with a lesson plan, and you know, if teachers are not teaching from a lesson plan, that is something to correct. But follow your lesson plan as much as you can, as normal. But ensure that your virtual teaching space is a little classroom space. I don't know if people can see the photo that I have there, but you can see that teacher's classroom space, and there's a whiteboard. There's all of your realia, like your real objects, that we use a lot of those in teaching English, right? So, so all of that you need your same visuals. So when you're teaching online, you really need a little mini classroom space all around you and behind you. You need to create that space for your students. And one thing that people don't realize in teaching online is that you can move. Like you can back up your screen. Like right now, I'm really close to mine, but I could back it up. I could stand up. I could point to something behind me. You can move around while you're teaching online. And it's important to do that. And students can move. And that is important because students need opportunities to get up and move around. Provide your handouts in advance and orient your students or their parents what they need to print off before the class time, and be present. Sometimes I've seen teachers online, okay, class, do this for the next 5 minutes, and the teacher gets up and walks away and gets a cup of coffee.
Okay.
I don't think that's the best thing to do.
Yes, you have to monitor, right? You have to be there.
Stay in your classroom. You know, now maybe if you have a 3-hour class, you know, that's a little different, but hopefully we don't have those. We need shorter times, not longer times when it's online. And just in terms of adapting some of the kinds of activities that we typically do in English classes, we do a lot of interactive tasks, right? Well, students can still do that on Zoom. They can still talk to each other. And especially if you use those breakout rooms, they can talk to each other. Independent tasks. Sometimes we say, okay, now everyone at your desk, you're going to have 5 minutes to fill out this whatever, right? We can still do those kinds of activities, but we need very, very specific instructions. So because it is easier for students to tune out and it's harder for teachers to see what students are doing, so that means that our instructions need to be even more specific and detailed, and post them on your screen somewhere, or even on a paper that you hold up and you put on the board behind you. Number 1, do this. Number 2, do this. Number 3, do this. Very specific instructions. And
details.
Yeah, go ahead, Daniele.
No, the details, right? Give
Details. And then the last point there on the screen is that we do want to see a lot of interaction between students and teacher. And that can still happen, but it doesn't all need to happen by Zoom. You know, if you can have WhatsApp open, maybe your student wants to send you a message by WhatsApp saying, I don't understand this. Maybe they would be too shy to say it into the camera, you know? So we can use all available technology so that we can interact with our students.
So it's a lot about adapting things that we already do in a real classroom. But in your opinion, are there things that we can't do or that we can't adapt?
You know, yeah, I think I have a little list here. It can be hard to, it can be hard to do songs. There can be a lag time, but you can involve students more. You can have students sing on their own. You can just sing while all their mics are muted and assume that they're following along. So we can adapt that kind of games. Some games work well, you know, or game-like activities. Bingo works well. TPR works well. Board games can be adapted. Movement games are harder. Like if everybody's going to sit in the circle, don't think we can really do that online. But always try to figure out a way to adapt it. Yeah. And Daniele, I know our time is going. Oh my goodness.
Yes, time flies by, right?
But Daniele, do you think sometimes do we tend to think that teaching online is only disadvantages?
I was going to ask you about these. What are the advantages then? Because we also have to look for the bright side, right?
And then this can be a good way to conclude on a positive note, right? Right, Daniele?
And I think there is someone asking about games that we can also use and do in the online class.
Yeah, you know what, Daniele, I did provide a resource to ACSI that on teaching online, and I think it has more information about games. And if not, invite this person to, you know, anybody can get in touch with me, because I agree we need to talk a little bit more specifically about, you know, what games can you do. So I would invite that conversation. I think there's not enough time now, but in the resource I provided, I do give more information about games. So maybe they could look there first,
Okay.
and then get in touch with me too.
All right.
But Daniele, I think there are advantages of teaching a language online. Student behavior issues can be minimized because, okay, here's the thing. You have this magical button called mute.
Mute. I use it. Yes.
You can use that button. So, and you can, some teachers, when you go back to the regular classroom now, you will wish you had a mute button. So really, one student's misbehavior doesn't have to derail the class. Like sometimes it does in a real classroom, right? Another advantage that I think is a good one is you can have more balanced participation time. Sometimes in a real classroom, the students who are really keen on learning English are sitting in the front and they raise their hands all the time. And you hear from those 2 or 3 students all the time, and you never hear from that other student in the back that never gives an answer. But on Zoom, no one's in the front, no one's in the back. All the little Zoom faces are the same. And you can call on students, you can, you know, unmute their button so that they need to speak. And so you can do things like that. And I think we can have more equitable groupings. You know, sometimes in a classroom, it's really easy to just say, okay, get in a group of 3 or 4 people that are sitting near you. But that's not purposeful grouping. In Zoom, you're going to be placing students in groups purposefully, right? You're going to be placing them there. So you are going to make sure that they are in the groups you want them to be in. So we can have more equitable grouping. Then also, students who really do want to focus on learning English, sometimes those students can actually hear better. I think we think a lot about online instruction kind of, oh, maybe the sound quality is not so good, etc. But Daniele, haven't you heard classrooms where students can hardly hear the teacher, or they can't very well hear each other? So sometimes Zoom enables us to hear better and enables students to hear the teacher's voice more clearly. The teachers, that there's a chat box that can be used. The teacher's speech can be clearer. It can be a good way to teach a well-designed lesson. And finally, I'm trying to rush through my points here. Finally, it can be a really good time to work on reading and writing skills. So we have online instruction. Why not take advantage of the fact that you can work on writing by email? You can, the students can do more reading. So it can be an opportune time to work more on those skills.
Wow, that's true. There are so many points that I haven't thought about it. I have thought about some, like the behavior issues, like, oh my God, it's so much easier to control than hear mute. But it was really, really nice to see all of the other points, like working on reading and writing and skills, and how to divide groups, because now it's easier.
Yes.
So it was, once again, was really, really, really nice to hear you and to learn from you.
Well, thank you. And I hope everyone has my email. But also, can I just say before we close, Daniele, at Messiah University now, we have a 50% discount for ACSI teachers. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that. I won't advertise more than that, but please get in touch with me if you're interested, because I'm really, really happy that we now have this big discount for ACSI teachers.
Great, amazing.
I worked hard on that.
Okay. So thank you once again. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. It's always amazing.
Thank you for inviting me. And if there are additional questions, I know there wasn't any time for questions, I'm sorry, but feel free to write to me. I would be happy to correspond with anyone.
Okay, but Dilean was checking, and there were just comments, not questions, so it's
okay.
Right?
Okay.
Bom, todos nós crescemos bastante. Eu vi os comentários aqui. Por favor. E as pessoas estavam comentando exatamente isso, o quanto a dica acrescentou, que foi uma boa sugestão. Então, obrigada, Jen, por estar aqui conosco.
Obrigada.
Vou dizer que o Mauro está digitando aí na ACSI Brasil, e nos links foi compartilhado o link do nosso site, que tem todas as informações lá no site, na sala do professor, de como os professores de inglês podem buscar recursos lá, inclusive todo o acesso para o Messiah College, que tem a sua página, Jen.
Excelente, obrigada.
Tá bom? E outra dica boa, em março, quando a Jen esteve no Brasil, nós gravamos uma série de entrevistas, perguntas curtinhas. Sim. E essas perguntas nós gravamos, editamos e estão já no canal. Comecei a colocar nas redes sociais mas no canal as pessoas já conseguem ver todas.
E tudo em português, né, Dila?
E tudo em português, que pode ajudar os professores, diretores que não falam inglês e familiares também a entender um pouco mais de toda essa proposta de ensinar inglês com uma missão, com um propósito de Deus para a sua vida. Jen, muito obrigada. Obrigada a todos vocês que estiveram aqui conosco. Tivemos uma média de 35 a 40 pessoas aqui conosco. Então, obrigada aos professores que reservaram esse tempo aqui para estar conosco nessa tarde, trocando essa experiência de vida e de missão de trabalho mesmo, não é?
Obrigada para todos.
Obrigada, Jen. Deus abençoe. Oi?
Deus te abençoe.
Amém. Deus abençoe você, Deus abençoe a todos. Sigam a página da ACSI e também as nossas redes sociais. Sempre tem novidades e sempre nessa linha de sermos excelentes como profissionais e dessa forma a gente glorifica a Deus e serve uns aos outros.
Amém.
Jen, muito obrigada por tudo. Olha o chefe aí.
Eu entrei que eu pensei que você ia esquecer de pedir para o pessoal curtir a página, clicar o sininho, dar um like no vídeo e deixar o comentário, tá? Isso aí é sua vida de youtuber agora, você tem que encarar. Pessoal,
verdade.
ajuda muito.
Sou novata.
Essas coisas que vocês
Tchau, pessoal.
fazem.
Muito obrigada.
Tá,
Deus abençoe.
tchau.
Excelente tarde de sexta.
Tchau.
Tchau, gente. Bye, bye.